Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Deshaun Carter. I am 33 years old. I live in the United States, and I'm the father of twins. 8 years ago, my former partner, Sharel, and I ended our relationship right after our twins were born. We had not even been together that long, about 14 months, when she found out she was pregnant. We both panicked for a moment, and then tried to convince ourselves that perhaps the relationship would click into place if we put the children at the center. That was the hope, that the responsibility of a family would glue together what had never quite fit. We were about as compatible as chalk and cheese, but we wanted to be decent parents, so we made an effort. In the beginning, we managed. We had disagreements like anyone else, but nothing catastrophic. We co-parented well enough and refused to make the children spectators in unnecessary conflict. We split time evenly, split expenses evenly, and we did not involve courts or child support because the arrangement felt balanced. I focused on doing right by the twins, and she did the same. We kept communication clean and practical, and for a little while it worked. 2 years after we separated, Sharel met a man named Maurice. He was not the person she dated immediately after we broke up. He was someone new, and she presented him as solid, steady, and stable. He had a daughter named Anaya, just about the same age as our twins, Micah and Nyla. When she told me they were getting serious, I tried to be supportive. If he was going to be part of the home where my children spent half their time, I wanted that home to be peaceful. At first, Sharel kept the conversation light. Family dinners, movie nights, the idea of one big family. It sounded harmless enough, and I thought, if our twins are comfortable, so am I. Then her suggestions shifted. She began to imply that I should treat Anaya as if she were my child. She suggested that when I took the twins to the park, to the movies, or to a museum, I should bring Anaya too. The expectation crept in quietly, masked as fairness. I have nothing against Anaya. She is a child in the middle of choices adults have made. But I am the father of 2 children, not 3, and I felt the weight of a new, unspoken requirement being placed on my shoulders. I explained myself plainly the first time it came up. I told Sharel that while I respect her relationship and Anaya's place in their home, I am responsible for Micah and Nyla. I said, I care about all children being safe and cared for, but I cannot pretend that I am a father to every child in your house. She did not like that answer. She pushed, gently at first, then regularly, turning occasional requests into obligations. I did not mind including Anaya here and there, especially when the children asked, but gradually it was as if my time with my twins no longer belonged to the 3 of us. The tension intensified around birthdays and holidays. If I planned something special for the twins, it raised an immediate question about what I would do for Anaya. If I purchased gifts for my children, there was commentary about parity. There was a day when I spent a little more on a combined robotics kit for Micah and Nyla than I did on a small art set for Anaya, and it turned into a debate about fairness. I drew a line. I told Sharel that my focus is on my twins, and anything I do for another child is a courtesy, not a guarantee. After that, our arrangement shifted from cooperative co-parenting to parallel parenting. We became careful with information, careful with invitations. We managed our separate weeks and did not attempt to blend them. If that sounds cold, it was not intended to be. It was clarity. Clear boundaries prevented confusion. Yet even with clear boundaries, the topic resurfaced in different forms every few months. Over time, Sharel and Morris's household grew. They had a baby together, a little girl named Harper, and later they took in Morris's nephew, Jalen. That meant that on their side of the world, my twins lived alongside Anaya, Jalen, and their half-sister Harper. Sharel was proud of building a big, warm family. I understood her pride, but I reminded her that my role remained unchanged. I am an attentive, present father to Micah and Nyla. The simmering disagreements found a new flashpoint with a school trip. The school our children attend is small by design, with mixed-age classrooms and a classical, hands-on approach. It puts siblings and step-siblings in the same rooms often. That structure has benefits for community, but can create unusual pressures when families are complicated. The class planned a trip to a major interactive museum, the kind of place where science turns into discovery, where a day's adventure becomes a lifelong memory. The trip was not cheap. Still, it was within my budget, and my twins were ecstatic. So I paid for Micah and Nyla. I mentioned it to Sharel, expecting a simple, "That is great. They will love it." Instead, she went quiet and then said, "If the other kids cannot go, it will not be fair." I thought I had misheard. She said it again, more carefully, and added that she and Maurice were not sure they could cover the cost for Anaya and Jalen. She asked if I would pay for them as well. I told her no. I suggested she and Maurice consider fundraising, saving, or talking to the school about scholarships. She did not respond to any of those options. She told me I needed to think about the dynamic in their home, that if my children went and the others did not, resentment would grow, and I would be responsible for that wedge. Maurice called me that evening. His tone was measured at first. He said, "We are trying to build a cohesive family. The children see themselves as siblings. It hurts them to be treated differently." I said, "I understand the emotional part, but the financial responsibility for Anaya and Jalen is not mine. I am not their father." He did not yell. He did not curse. He said, "This is the kind of decision that fractures families," and let it hang in the silence, as if the weight of the accusation would do the convincing. I asked Maurice a simple question. "Why is it my job to pay for all of the children in your house?" He did not answer directly. He talked about unity, about the value of sameness, about preventing jealousy. He said, "If they all do the same thing, we avoid problems." I said, "I cannot eliminate jealousy by pretending I'm a father to everyone. Children can learn gratitude and patience. They can learn that every blessing does not arrive on the same day." He did not like that. He told me I was being selfish. I said I was being a parent, specifically a parent to Micah and Nyla. The conversation spiraled. It was not hostile in tone, but it was relentless in pressure. Sharel tried the angle of damage. "If they resent one another, it will be because you ignored the bigger picture." Maurice tried the angle of moral judgment. "Real fathers support the family." I responded, "A real father sets a boundary when a boundary is needed." "You two chose your household structure." I did not. "I am responsible for my children. You are responsible for yours." In the end, we agreed on nothing, and the call ended with the sense that a storm had drifted out to sea but not truly dissipated. Days later, Sharel asked to meet at a diner off a highway between our neighborhoods. The place had the quiet hum of mid-morning, the clatter of cups, the soft hiss of the grill, and an old jukebox lit by sunlight. She came in wearing a coat she favored during the colder months, and a resolve I recognized. She had rehearsed. She began without greeting or small talk. "I do not think you are understanding what this is," she said. "This is not about a single trip." I let her speak. She explained her philosophy, a standard for all children in the home, a seamless fabric of experiences, an insistence that no one feel less. She extended the logic forward. Not only trips, but extracurriculars, activities, and even vacations. She said, "We need to be on the same page. We should treat all the children the same." I asked, "Do you mean that I should pay for opportunities for Anaya and Jalen whenever I do the same for Micah and Nyla?" She said, "Yes. Within reason, yes." I breathed in slowly and allowed the reality of what she was asking to settle in the air between us. "I cannot do that," I said. "I will not do that. I respect you. I respect your marriage and your home. But I will not take on the financial role of a father for children who are not mine." She frowned and clasped her hands, as if holding her arguments together. "If you cared about the children's well-being, you would support the whole family," she said. "Not just your two." I answered, "My caring is measurable every day in the lives of Micah and Nyla. It is not a deficit of character to hold the line when someone else tries to expand your job description." She sat back when the server arrived with coffee. It was a pause in the debate, nothing more. When the server left, she tried a different route. "This will follow them. If we create a pattern now where your kids receive more, it will affect how they see themselves, how the others see themselves. The rivalry will not fade." I said, "There is a difference between rivalry and reality. Reality is that I am their father. Reality is that you chose to build a larger household. Reality is that I am not a bank for that choice. They can all learn something more valuable than sameness. How to be content, how to celebrate others without entitlement." She did not like the word entitlement. Her eyes hardened. "You will regret this," she said. When the children drift apart, you will wonder if you could have prevented it. I said, I would not regret teaching my children that it is acceptable to have boundaries. They will not learn to be generous if they watch me resentfully by silence. They will learn generosity from joy, not from obligation that tastes like resentment. Just then, Maurice walked into the diner and, without even a glance around, made his way to our table. Whether that was coincidence or design, I cannot say. He greeted Charles first, then nodded at me. Maurice slid into the booth across from me, like an attorney, joining closing arguments. We are trying to hold the family together, he said. Your stance creates separation. I said, you're trying to hold your household together by distributing your costs outward. That is not partnership. That is conscription. He exhaled through his nose, small and tight. When they begin to hate one another, you will have done that, he said. I will not carry that over my name, I replied. If they feel bitterness, you can explain that you asked another man to pay for your children, and he said no. You can explain that he offered alternatives. You can explain that he was a consistent father to his own children and that you attempted to shame him into becoming a father to yours. Cheryl's voice rose a little, not loud enough to gather the whole room, but enough for the booth behind us to go quiet. Stop acting like this is about us taking advantage of you, she said. It is about fairness. I said, fairness is not a math problem you solve with my wallet. Fairness is you and Maurice deciding how to make opportunities affordable for your children, and me deciding what I can do for mine. I stood because there was nothing more to say that would not loop back through the same points. My boundaries are not negotiable, I said. I hope the children have a good day. But I'm going. The aftermath did not arrive as silence. It arrived as a chorus. Cheryl's sister sent long messages about unity and love, asking me if I truly believed my twins' happiness could exist in a vacuum. When I did not reply, the messages hardened, like cement setting in an accusation. Morris's cousin commented under a photo of me and the twins at a Little League game with a line about real fathers and whole families. I deleted it and did not respond. At some point, Cheryl's mother called. Her voice carried decades of certainty. If you would simply pay for all of the children, she said, this would end. I said, I will not. Those are not my children. She told me that a good man steps up for the household. I told her a good man knows his responsibilities and refuses to make a promise he cannot keep with a good heart. The next week, when I returned Micah and Nyla to Cheryl's house, Maurice met me in the driveway. He did not bother with a greeting. He said, you are hurting the children. I said, I am caring for my children. You are asking me to cover for your choices. He said, everyone in this family sees your unfairness. I said, everyone in this family is free to form an opinion, but opinions do not write checks. He stared at me for a long moment, and then turned away, and it felt like the argument had not ended, but simply put on a coat and gone walking down the street in search of another door to knock on. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the light low and the house quiet. I tried to trace the path from a simple desire, to give my children a special experience, to a battlefield of accusations and moral claims. I called two close friends and told a story, careful with details and names. One said, with gallows humor, that if the extended family felt so strongly, they could begin a family fund and handle it themselves. I laughed because it was absurd and because laughter can be a valve that releases pressure before a pipe bursts. But when the call ended, I felt the same stillness inside, a resolve that this was not going to change. I called Micah and Nyla into the living room the next day. I did not burden them with adult negotiations. I simply said, I am excited about your upcoming trip. This is something I wanted to do for the two of you. It is all right for you to be excited about something that belongs to you. Nyla asked, will Anaya and Jalen be there? I said, I am not sure, sweetie. That is up to their parents. I know you can be kind if they are disappointed, and you can still be happy about your day. Micah nodded with the steady seriousness he uses when he is trying to take care of his sister. We will be kind, he said. We will not brag. I put an arm around each of them and drew them in close. After that conversation, I called Charel. I kept my voice level and my words precise. I will not be paying for opportunities outside of our twins, I said. This is my final decision. I will not argue or revisit it. I am not responsible for your household's expenses. She began to repeat the previous points about unity and parity. I let her finish one paragraph and then said, I understand how you feel. My answer is unchanged. Sometimes the simplest sentences are a wall. She paused, exhaled, and said, fine. You have made your choice. The words were faintly theatrical, the tone meant to sting, but they signaled the thing I had needed to hear all along. Acceptance. The pressure evaporated. No more long messages. No more calls from extended family. It was as if the moths had learned the bulb was no longer warm and fluttered off in search of another light. In the quiet that followed, I focused on my children. We made weekday routines into something gentle. After-school snacks at the kitchen island, basketball in the driveway, a running joke about Micah's habit of leaving books open and face down on every flat surface. We watched movies and baked cookies, and Nyla, who cannot resist performing, narrated the steps like a host of cooking show. This, I thought, is the life that boundaries protect. The day of the trip arrived under a clear sky. I dropped them at school, watched them run in, and caught the way they turned, in perfect mirror, to wave at me in the doorway. I would have bottled that image if I could. That afternoon, when they came home, they were electric with stories. The room where a tornado formed in a glass cylinder, the submarine exhibit, the flight simulator that made Nyla squeal and Micah grin. I listened for the undercurrent, awkwardness about siblings who had not gone. But if it was there at all, it was quiet, smaller than the joy of the day. The next morning, Charles called. I braced for sarcasm or a sharp edge of passive aggression, but it did not arrive. She asked, did they have fun? I said they did. I was prepared to keep the call short, and then she surprised me. I still disagree with you, she said, but I respect that you stood up for what you believe and for the children you are responsible for. She did not apologize, but she also did not push. That acknowledgement was not a victory lap or a true celebration. It was a small, necessary bow to reality. In the weeks that followed, we settled into a new equilibrium. We communicated about schedules and school projects and the 1,000 tiny things that fill a child's week. We did not combine holidays, and we did not attempt to plan joint outings. That parallel structure, which some might call unromantic, became the frame inside which our children could live without being asked to carry our conflict. I found that I second-guessed myself less. I made choices based on what was best for Micah and Nyla, rather than on what might avoid an argument with adults who were not prepared to hear no. A month later, just when I allowed myself to believe that the topic was retired, a new request arrived dressed in the same clothes. Charelle called and began with a gentle report about the twins' week at her place. Homework, piano practice, a funny accident with spilled cereal that turned into a family joke. Then her tone shifted. She said, they do not have the same comforts at our house that they have at yours. I asked what she meant. She walked me through the details. Bedrooms that felt cramped now that the household had grown, a small backyard, a kitchen that bottlenecked at dinner time. I listened, because listening is free and decent. Then she made her request. I want you to buy a house, she said. Not for you. For them. A second home, that would be for the twins when they are with me. I would live there too, of course. It would be their place as well as mine. I let the sentence stand in the air for a moment, amazed by its audacity and saddened by its inevitability. The logic was the same as before, only the price tag had changed. You already have a home, I said. She said, it is too small for a family this size. It is affecting them. You could fix this. You could make it equal. The words equal and fix clicked together like magnets, trying to turn me into a tool. I told her no. I said, the twins have what they need at your place. If you want a bigger home, that is something you and your husband can decide to pursue. I'm not responsible for upgrading your life. She went quiet in that particular way that is not silence, but silent argument. Then she said, if they begin to feel like the only place they truly have a home is with you, that will be because you refuse to help. I said, if they feel that way, it will be because you invited them into a house that grew more crowded over the years, and then tried to transfer the cost of your expansion to someone else. The conversation ended there. There was a flicker of something in her voice, anger, hurt, helplessness, but I could not tell which. I sat for a moment after the call, letting the familiar heat in my chest cool. Then I got up, packed a bag with water bottles, apples, and a basketball, and waited for Micah and Nyla to come out from school. When they climbed into the car, I said, we are heading to the park. We shot hoops until the skies softened, and the first streetlights blinked awake. We did not speak about houses. We did not speak about fairness. We spoke about free throws, and then we stopped speaking at all because laughter carried us the rest of the way to the car. If all of this sounds simple in its conclusion, it was not simple while it was happening. Every conversation came with undercurrents: history, pride, insecurity, a tug-of-war between what one wants and what one can have. But there is something about naming a boundary, defending it, and refusing to adorn it with apology that changes a life. I realized that I slept better. I realized that the twins looked more relaxed when they were with me, as if the air in the house had been cleared of smoke they did not know how to describe. A few days after the house request, I ran into Maurice at a grocery store. He was standing by the oranges, checking each one for the perfect weight and color. The chance meeting cut past theatricality and put us in the same aisle with carts that bumped softly. He nodded, and I nodded back. For a moment, we stood beside each other like two men who wanted their homes to be stocked and their dinners to be on time. "How are the kids?" I asked. He said, "They are fine." He hesitated and then added, "Anaya was disappointed about the trip. She got over it." I said nothing and waited. Jalen did not care. He said with a short breath that was almost a laugh, "He is impossible to predict." I said, "Children are resilient." He said, "They are." We were two fathers speaking a truth that did not require an argument. I pushed my cart away from produce, thinking of the dozen ways that conversation might have gone and grateful for the one that actually happened. The twins and I made rice bowls that night. Chicken with garlic and scallions, and the kind of careful slicing that makes a routine dinner feel like an event. Nyla chopped, Micah stirred, and I handled the knife work. We sat at the table and told stories, the kind that do not have endings so much as punchlines, and I thought, I'm doing my job. I'm not doing every job someone else thinks I should do, and that is not a moral failure. It is a design choice for a life. Weeks later, Sharel and I had a meet at school for a teacher conference, an ordinary appointment that focuses the mind on what truly matters. The teacher spoke about strengths and growth, Micah's curiosity and his habit of reading ahead, Nyla's gift for language and presentation, their shared kindness to classmates. There were suggested improvements, the usual. We both took notes. Leaving the building, we walked side by side without speaking until we reached the parking lot. "They're doing well," she said. I said, "They are." She added quietly, "That is the point." I nodded. We parted ways without reopening any old arguments. There is a particular kind of peace that comes from understanding what you owe and what you do not owe. It is not an excuse to be selfish. It is permission to be precise. I owe my children presence, love, stability, instruction, and, when I can provide it, joy. I owe their mother respect, honesty, and clarity. I do not owe anyone else the erasure of my boundaries to ease the friction in a home I did not build. When I hold to that, I become a better father because my decisions are not weighed down by negotiated guilt. A Saturday afternoon in spring found us three at a community center gym for a pickup game. The twins were on a team with two cousins from our block, and I coached from the sideline with the harmless bias of a father who wants to see good passes and balanced play. After the game, we stopped at a small bakery and split a slice of lemon cake. Nyla asked, "Can we invite Anaya to the next game?" Micah added, "And Jalen." I said, "Of course. Invite them. Some days it will work, some days it will not." They both accepted that without any shadow crossing their faces, and I thought, this is how balance looks from a child's point of view. Open doors without forced sameness. Summer came. We planned a road trip to Chicago so the twins could visit the museum again and add a day at the lakefront. We mapped it together on the kitchen table, tracing the route with a marker. On the morning we left, Sharel helped them pack at her house and sent a text that said, "Have fun. Be safe." It did not carry subtext or demands. It was the kind of message people send when they have accepted that there are separate lanes and that the highway is safer when everyone stays in theirs. We drove with the windows down, music loud enough to feel like an extra person breathing in the car. At the museum, Nyla led us from exhibit to exhibit like a docent with a personal mission. Micah gave every placard more attention than it deserved, as if the words held secret clues. They asked for the submarine tour. We booked it and listened to the guide turn steel and rivets in a history that moved. Afterward, we stood in the sunlight, blinking a little as if the world had been underwater and then surfaced. "Dad," Micah said, "I want to build something like that." Nyla laughed and said, "You cannot fit a submarine in our yard." He replied, "You did not say I could not imagine it." The future was talking, and I was content to be the ear it was using. The house request did not return. I suspect the silence came from a combination of pride and a dawning practicality. Perhaps Charelle realized what she had asked, in the light of a calmer day. Perhaps Maurice found his voice in a way that was not an accusation, but a solution. Perhaps neither happened, and the issue only went to sleep. I did not ask. I did not keep watch for its return like someone waiting for the distant flash of lightning. If it comes back, it will meet the same answer. Until then, there is no need to rehearse an argument in an empty room. On a Sunday evening, I stood at the sink washing dishes while the twins worked at the dining table on a diorama for a science assignment. "Dad," Nyla called, "do you think Anaya can come over and help with the painting tomorrow?" I dried my hands, walked to the doorway, and said, "Ask your mother if the schedule works." "If it does, absolutely." Micah said, "Jalen might want to build the volcano." I smiled. "We will see if he is free," I said. I understood then that my children were living a truth I had hoped for. They could love their siblings and keep their joy intact, even when every day did not deliver the same gift to every person. Not every day is smooth. There are moments when someone's feelings get bruised, when a plan falls apart, when a text lands heavier than it should. But the foundation holds. It holds because it is simple and honest. I am a father to 2 children. I am generous where I can be, but I do not purchase peace by surrendering clarity. The twins do not need me to be a hero in another house. They need me to be a steady man in this one. Months later, on a chilly afternoon, Charelle sent a message. "The kids say you promised hot chocolate after the game." I laughed and texted back, "Promises made. Promises kept." She responded with a single thumbs up, and it felt, in that small exchange, like the new rhythm of our lives was set. No grand statements. No philosophical duels. Just the day-to-day choreography of getting children where they need to go and making sure they know they are loved by all the adults who are responsible for them. We stood outside the gym that evening, steam rising from the paper cups as the twins compared stats, made jokes, and plotted a rematch against their friends. Charelle arrived to pick them up. She smiled at them and then at me, a brief lift of the corners of her mouth that admitted life is complicated and we were doing our best. The twins hugged me tight. "See you Wednesday," Micah said. "See you Wednesday," I replied. Nyla added, "Do not forget the poster board." I said, "I will not." They climbed into the car, and I watched the taillights curve away. Walking back to my own car, I thought again of the day at the diner, of the phone calls and messages, of the way my heart had pounded like a fist on a door during those weeks. The memory did not bruise me anymore. It felt like a chapter that had ended exactly where it needed to, not with dramatic closure, but with a sentence that lands cleanly. If there is any justice in small things, it is this. When you tell the truth about your limits, the world eventually rearranges itself around that truth, and the people who cannot live within it drift far enough away that their voices are not the loudest sound in your head. Now, when I plan something for my twins, I do so with the calm of a man who knows whom he is serving. If another child in their constellation can join, and the schedules align, that is wonderful. If not, the sky does not fall. There is no tribunal convened to discuss intent and fairness. There is only a father who loves his children, a mother in another house who has accepted that love's boundaries, and a group of children learning that family is not diminished by clear lines. It is made more secure. The last time I tucked the twins in at my place, Micah asked, "Dad, when I am older, will I have to pay for everyone's stuff?" Nyla said, "That is not how it works." I sat on the edge of the bed and said, "Here's how it works. You care for the people you are responsible for. You share with others when you can, and you do it with a glad heart. You do not let anyone tell you that love requires you to forget what is yours to carry and what is not." Micah nodded. Nyla said, "So we can be kind and still have our own things." I said, "Exactly." They settled back into their pillows, and I stood in the doorway a moment longer to memorize the quiet. I turned off the hall light, stepped into the living room, and sat down with the day's small victories. The world will keep making asks. It is not the world's job to protect your peace. That is your job. Mine is to raise 2 children who can tell the difference between generosity and surrender, who can love widely without paying for that love with resentment, and who can stand in any room in this country, any classroom, any museum, any home, and know that the man standing behind them has already decided where he stands. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.